talked a lot about um, embracing the adversity, not handling it, embrace it and defeat it.
Welcome to the Jamodi Podcast, where we interview coaches and leaders to find out not just what they do, but how they do what they do. Becoming the best version of ourselves is Jamodi, just a matter of doing it. Today we are joined by former head men's basketball coach of Wayland Baptist University and the founder of MG Basketball Instruction, Matt Garnett. Coach Garnett led the Pioneers to the school's first Sooner Athletic Conference Championship in the history of the program. He was an NAIA All-American at Wayland Baptist. Coach Garnett also serves as the founder and director of Hoops for Him, which is a nonprofit organization seeking to train and equip current high school and collegiate student athletes to become leaders within their teams and on their campuses. Before we hear from Coach Garnett, take a moment to subscribe to our podcast and follow us on social media at Jamodi Podcast. All right, real quick story with Coach Garnett here and kind of how we met. Coach, how long has it been since I've known you?
Oh man, it's been over 10 years now.
Over 10 years.
Over 10 years.
I was working a camp at Flower Mound High School, and the coach there at the time, Coach Freet, said, "Hey, I've got this guy, Matt Garnett, that is doing a camp, and he needs some people to work." And I was like, "Oh, golly, another camp. Okay, I'll go do it." And it didn't take me long to realize that, one, like, this guy is a genius. He's a basketball genius, and I don't throw that around very much. And two, this is a dude that I want to work with and I want to kind of continue to sync up with. So, Coach, I hope that that's a second intro into you, but thanks for being with me today.
Absolutely. Glad to be here.
All right, first question. How do you live out your culture on a daily basis?
And some of these, I sit here and think about where I was when I was coaching in college, 6, 7 years ago, and then as I transitioned into skill development and then coaching all these youth teams. And so I kind of look at where we were and where we are now, and I think the big thing that the three things that we always look at would be toughness, communication, and courage. I think are the three things that we are trying to live out on a daily basis, whether it be our fourth grade girls team or our college team at Wayland Baptist. And when we talk about toughness, I think the big thing that we looked at there is just being an everyday guy. The saying "chop wood, carry water" was something that we had all over everything we did. I actually read the book afterwards, and one of the best books that I've read. But just the idea of we do have a process. We're going to show up every day, irregardless of result. We've got to clock in and do things right each day in order to kind of proceed to the next step. And so with toughness, I think trying to be process oriented was a big piece of it. Trying to cultivate the idea of an every play guy, just consistency. I think the Jay Billis thoughts on toughness is something that we really tried to talk about what toughness meant to us. The communication piece, I think, is something that, I've talked to my oldest daughter about this a lot. It's the idea of it may not be your gift, but it's a quality you have to cultivate. And so just because it's not your gift doesn't mean it has to be this process that you're very uncomfortable doing it, and I'm having to berate you to do it type of a thing. I want it to become something that you understand is something you're gonna have to cultivate.
Love that.
And then the idea of courage. I think that's something that that word just really has stuck with me over the last few years of trying to be courageous in the way we play, and courageous in the way we think, courageous in the way that we compete. And I think there's the idea of joy and courage and not fearing the consequences of things going wrong. That's something that we really have tried to blend with that idea of being tough, but being tough involves being courageous.
When you were especially coaching college basketball, in what ways, like if you watched a player do something or you saw a play go by, like what was something where like that's courage? I see it in that moment.
I think it's the willingness to. I mean, you could make it a decision, like the willingness to make the decision. We talk about do what you think you see, and trying to be the more aggressive team. And so I think if you see a guy having the courage to try to make a play, take a big shot, if they're doing that, correctly, you got to celebrate that. And I think that's something that how do you develop guys that want the ball in a big moment? How do you develop guys that'll slide over and take a charge? Well, being willing to try it, even if
Hmm.
if they're trying it in the right way and it doesn't go well, let's don't dwell on that. Let's celebrate the courage it took to try to make that play. And so I think it could be a defensive play, an offensive play, maybe just attacking a gap, trying to do something that we want to do, and whether it works, try not to be completely results driven in
Hmm.
that process of cultivating some of those qualities.
And now you're in the skill work development world even more. I could see how courage and that kind of the culture of all three things, but courage especially, can help these kids because in skill development, it's all about taking chances and making those mistakes and the fear of that. I mean, either from coaches players have had or parents that players have, whatever it is that makes them kind of always wary and worried about those mistakes. I can see courage being a huge part in your skill work and training.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that's I have the luxury of creating a lab in a sense. There's not a win or loss hanging over some of our workouts. And I think that's a wonderful opportunity for kids. Everything they do is structured now,
Mm,
and there's a trainer, there's a coach, there's a summer league, everything's got somebody there with them. And so I think the idea of finding a place where they feel like they can go for it, they can try to make that decision. And again, kind of going back to that, do what you think you see. And
mm,
how do you develop instincts with a player? Well, first you got to get them to what they think they see. And I think so many kids are hiding in plain sight. They're trying to not mess up, playing it too safe. And that environment is a lot of fun to be around, especially with the youth. And I mean, heck, it's you want more joy in everything you do. And so getting older guys to do the same thing is a lot of fun. But having kids that are going for it, trying to make that play, let's celebrate that, and learn from it. It doesn't have to that it's the book that I mentioned to you, Annie Duke, the idea of it's resulting. Like,
mm.
what is the best decision you ever made? We're probably going to tell you a decision that worked out. What's the worst decision you ever made? We're going to probably tell you something that didn't work out, but that's resulting. And it's this
Mm.
idea of we can't. There's a component of luck. There's a component of things working out that we got to be careful that we're not resulting as coaches and people.
That's awesome. I'm definitely stealing the resulting idea. And I've always loved that quote, "Do what you see." And I think for players, that's pretty powerful because we want them to be instinctual and do things in the moment. And that's where I don't like don't think, play. That's not you have to think, but that thinking has to be fast and you have to be able to see something and react really quick. One more thing, going back to toughness, because I mean, as a high school coach, and then I gotta imagine tons of coaches out there at every level all want their teams to be tougher. What were some things that you did well that made your college teams really tough to play against?
I think it probably goes back to the Steve Nash idea of becoming comfortable, being uncomfortable in a sense. But the idea of um, we were real truth tellers, and we're
Mm,
going to stack things against ourselves. We're going to make this really difficult. We're going to just get used to that idea that this is not going to be easy. Embracing. We talked a lot about um, embracing the adversity, not handling it. Embrace it and defeat it,
mm,
and really trying to take the approach that we're going to prepare for that, be by willing to kind of walk through those difficult things, walk through that, and then just to me, it's the idea of you know I've got to I've got to model it. I've got to model toughness, being an everyday guy. I've got to come in with high energy. We've got to teach it. We got to encourage it. Sometimes demand it. There's the moment where it's just there's a consequence for not doing it. But then at the same time, I think celebrating it. I think whatever we're going to celebrate is important to us. And I think when you can start to that, we had little first and second grade 3-on-3 league on Sunday afternoons that we just got done with, and we celebrate those kids being first to the floor for a loose ball. We celebrate them and it's amazing how quickly you got kids, modeling that behavior because everybody wants to be celebrated. You always talk about, everybody wants to hear their name, and I love that. And I think that there's this idea that, um, that's human nature, and I think
Right.
we need to play into that, creating that toughness. I think there's this challenging component, but then there's this celebration component, and I don't know that you can do one without the other because I don't think toughness just comes out of fear.
Toughness doesn't come out of fear or from fear. I love that. I think, yeah, you're celebrating. I think as coaches, we need to look for those opportunities to celebrate the positives because I know for me, it's natural to where's negatives, where are things that need to improve. And man, you can just find those all over the place and really quick. But if you can flip that switch or train yourself to almost see the positives more, I mean, how much more joy is in the workout, and how many players become just happier while they train, and I think that's important. That's good stuff.
Mhm.
All right, question 2: how does individual skill work into your daily practice? Coaches, the Jamodi podcast is powered by Biology. What's your BSA score? The Biology Skill Assessment is the only verified skills metric endorsed by the NIA and NJCAA to discover and develop the best talent for your team. This 10-minute, 100-shot test can be taken for free today on the Biology mobile app. Elevate your game. How does individual skill work into your daily practice?
This was something that if I evaluated what I was doing in 2014 to what I would be doing now or what I'd do with no matter what level team, I think the best thing that happened to me was being to step out of probably the resulting actual idea of mindset of winning games and trying to compete and just become a devil's advocate of everything that I did. Why
Mm,
did we do that? Did I do that because that's what we've always done? Did I do that because that's what my coach did? And trying to kind of reverse engineer um, the effectiveness of skill development. And so one of the things that we always used to do was make sure we got enough shots up. So I mean, I think that's always been important. But this whole idea of high frequency skills, like what do we really need to be working on? How does that connect to the game? And pick apart anything that doesn't, and either recreate it
mm,
or throw it away, type of an idea. And so to me, everything we do is skill development. And we use the terminology of the idea of like we're never working on just footwork or finishing, like we're working on offense. Like we're
mm,
playing offense in this skill development drill. We're playing offense in that multi-sided game. They go zone. What are we doing, guys? We're playing offense. There's
mm,
other ways to do it. There's spacing. There's technique. There's all those different things. But I think streamlining every piece of what we do, developing players into the idea that they're becoming better offensive or defensive players, and not separating the two. I mean, I think there's a lot of really good ways to do that. But it started with me with the idea I had to get rid of anything that was just being done. There's a lot of drills that you just see pop up over and over, and you
yeah.
see them all the time. And guilty as charged. I mean, I would have presented the same thing in the same clinic until I think I was able to step outside that world and say, you know, what am I really getting? What are we really doing there? That kind of idea. So I think it's not only the foundation, but it's in the fabric of everything we do.
That self evaluation piece is huge. Like, how many of us are doing things um, because our high school coach did it or our college coach did it? Not that everything that they did was wrong or bad, but does it really fit the group that you have? Is there a more efficient way? I mean, how many drills, shooting drills or whatever it is, are out there that don't replicate what it feels like to be in the game? And the idea of, just getting shots up, right? That phrase, that's kind of word vomit. That, I mean, obviously if there's a plan in place, then it's more than just getting shots up. But I think that's good stuff that all coaches need to think about and evaluate. Is look at our practice plans, look at the things that how do we play, and how does it really work into our skill work and how we're preparing the guys.
Absolutely. It's I think the age group, all of a sudden I went from recruiting guys that were either really good that I felt like we could develop to be better, or they were ready to go. They were
Mm,
1 year transfers. I mean, those to all of a sudden working with a fifth grader, a seventh grader that didn't make the C team. And if I'm going to train him, if he's going to come, I mean, how are we really going to get him better? Because I mean, he's not very, very good, one, and two, you know, what's actually even possible within a short amount of time? How can he get better quickly? That
mm,
idea, and I think that's the neat part of the challenge of that, is that you have to really figure out what works. And if you're doing anything that, and not fluff's the wrong word, but if you're just doing things and it doesn't translate,
yeah.
it's that's magnified when the kid's a lower level player or just a youth player
Mhm.
for that matter.
I mean, you know that I love all things Micah Lancaster and the I'm possible way of training. And but if you're not careful, and he says this a lot too, you have to help players see the game behind the action or activity that they're doing. Because if not, it's a little bit like a circus, and they're just performing an action, but there's no, I love that, there's no game connector to it, and finding ways to connect. I think you do that really well. And one thing I was just thinking about, what are the, I mean, what are the similarities, or how can you train an incoming freshman on your college team that you have high hopes for, and then a seventh grader? Because I think you're unique in the fact that you've done both. Or what do you see as similarities, differences, challenges between the two?
I think it's the idea of, one, kind of accepting the reality of what you're working with in regards to what does that seventh grader need right now, like at his level of development. What does he need to be able to be doing first before we can build on that? And then with the older guy, I mean, there's always advanced training, but at the end of the day, it's far more, I guess, more similar than it is different. I
Hmm.
think. I think there's so many things that are just the high frequency things don't change for the most part. A kid in seventh grade being able to simply catch the ball, peek, and play to his left hand efficiently, that may be all that he needs to be able to do right now, and he can't do that at all. And
Hmm.
sometimes that surprises you when you really think of what the game requires.
Right.
The games requires that of you, but I think trying to figure out where they're at and then building. I think that's the key to all of it. And I mean, with our young ones tonight, it's this idea of dribbling the ball, seeing a defender rotating, being able to pick up the dribble, make the decision of it's time to pass, and make the pass. I mean, there's a lot going on there, but that's a high frequency skill for them. And so
Mm.
if we can do that with them, it looked better in the live play tonight. And then there's a skill that seventh grader needs that I really believe he could be a better player in a game situation pretty quickly if we
Mm.
focus on the right thing,
Right.
and really try to simplify that.
What's the best thing that you've borrowed lately?
Oh man, so we just implemented this idea, and the coach. I should, if I'm going to steal it, I should remember exactly who it is. But it's a high school coach up in the Midwest, and he called it his Kobe winner of the week. And so I was really intrigued by what he was talking
Kobe
about. So what
winner.
he said, yeah, the Kobe winner. I'm
Okay.
probably going to call it the MJ winner of the week. But the idea is the same.
Understood.
It's a wonderful idea. So he says when the first two guys that show up to practice, the first two players that are there play a one-on-one game to three. And so they start competing right away, and put the parameters that you want on that one-on-one game. The moment you have a winner in that top group, he can challenge anyone else in the gym, and he can interrupt their game and challenge them. And so you have your kind of kingpin from the week before. And so pre-practice is just a series of 3.101 games, and you find a daily winner from total number of wins. And so if you want control of the game, one, you need to get there early, and two, you need to be last week's winner.
Mm.
And then he compiles total wins for the week, and then you get a belt for him, and it's the Kobe winner of the week. And I love the idea because it's the pre-practice routine of he wants them competing, he wants them. And I don't think we play enough one-on-one. I mean, I think that's something that I didn't do enough of. Do a lot more with my girls and my young teams. But I love this idea of his pre-practice, whether it was 5 days a week or a couple days a week was the Kobe day where it was just one-on-one games.
Coach, that's gold. And
It's
I'm stealing that. The Grapevine Faith Lions will be doing that. The reward for the guy that gets there first, and then also for the guy that wins or girl that wins. What real quick? What rules do you like the most in one-on-one, or do you
I
change them
think
up?
that, depending on level of play, of course you want your dribble, your dribble maximum on there, how many dribbles. I think there is a point you'd be a little careful with that as they get older, and there is the idea of being able to set people up with your dribble. So I think the 1, 2, 3 dribble rule. I think efficiency would be key, and then I like the idea of playing it off the closeout too. I think let's play
Mm.
off the catch some days. Let's play out of a weak side rotation, and close back out, because I think playing off the catch is so important. So those would be the two things to mix up how the game starts, whether it be a dribble start, playing off the catch start, or playing with some footwork first.
The Jamodi podcast is powered by Sideline Interactive. Sideline Interactive is the leading manufacturer for high-quality, innovative scoring tables and LED video display boards that help coaches and schools bring more excitement to fans, create huge fundraising opportunities, and make their jobs easier. Visit sidelineinteractive.com to check out their amazing products. How do you teach shooting in your program?
Okay, so this is one that I've definitely shifted. I was all repetition. And personal history of shooting, becoming a very good shooter through repetition. And I still think that is the only thing that you must have to be a great shooter. Like if you don't have a great work ethic, you'll never become a great shooter.
Hmm.
But over time, I think that there's this of studying shooting. There's this idea that there's commonalities between all the different handwritings of shooting. There's commonalities, and I really studied this for a long time, probably 2 years ago, pre-COVID, was the idea of how are all these guys shooting the ball differently, but yet they're all really effective. So there's got to be some common traits. And so what I've looked at and what I've come up with is the idea that and there's 5 of them. It's hand placement, it's balance and footwork, shot line, and then the timing piece is the number 1 piece, and then how you finish your shot. And so I think you've got to go at it from both. It's the idea of creating a gym rat to become a great shooter. The piece of it that I didn't do near well enough as a college coach was creating a game element to shooting. There's very rarely that we don't shoot with the idea of shot or pass decision, where we have the feeling of a defender, at least making them make the decision on a catch. You mentioned it earlier, but the idea of what does open feel like, they got to know that. The wonderful shot selection piece from PGC, the sevens, and this, we're big time truth tellers. Even, the 4th grade girls team, we're telling the truth to each other. And I think there's appreciation that even a 4th grade girl has on being told the truth. But it's the idea that her 7 and your 7's different.
Yeah, it's not fair. Yeah.
It's not
life's
fair.
not fair. Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. And so if you want your 7 to be different, then there is a repetition piece to this, and so that whole idea, I think, has not changed. I've always been a big believer in shot selection, big believer, and if you want to become a great shooter, you're going to put in the time. It's repetition. But then these technique pieces, I think every kid, I think 2 things when I approach a kid: how much do they want to potentially adjust things? And that may be none. And there may be a kid, the Jim Furyk of shooting, that I'm not going to touch. I mean, I just think there's a point where there's got to be kind of an openness. They're searching for something.
Mm-hmm.
The idea of shot adjustments more than shot changing, I think, is huge, because changing shakes everybody up. Adjusting, maybe not so much. But then the idea of how much do they need a change? Like, is there something to do with their shot that it's worth it? And you got to try to convince them of that. For me, the hand placement piece is huge. I think you have to, if you have bad hand placement, I think my shot was changed by a coach at an early age to fit a kind of an unorthodox shooting approach. But the way if a coach told me it was gold. I mean, it was the authority.
You trusted them. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And then when I tried to start to evolve and become more of a jump shooter, I had bad hand placement.
Hmm.
No one in my life was able to recognize that. So I became a great finisher with my shot, and through repetition, became a very good shooter. But it was something that I think, if I look at these 5 things, if you can, the more of these you can get in your favor, the more efficiently you can raise the ceiling of your efficiency
Hmm.
as a shooter. And so I think hand placement's a subtle adjustment. I think the idea of creating a shot line, uh, the idea of whether it's turning your feet, but getting, I think Tyler Costa calls it pointing your mechanism to the basket. I think that's something that all great ones do, and
Hmm.
there's so much more of the turn out there, and everybody's shot than we even see. So I think there's some things that get way outside um, what we have done traditionally to teach shooting.
Hmm.
And then I think there's this idea that there's form shooting. I think everyone does that. Everyone teaches that well. And then there's this carryover, which we talk about, the transition, the game, the piece of this um, there's form is, to me, it's almost like skill builders, and then simulating game situations. We can form shoot every day, and that's not bad, but that's not really going to translate into a
Yeah,
game
it has
until
to
we really,
connect. It has to translate
yeah,
over, or else it's almost two different shots. You're practicing two different
absolutely.
two different shots, two different mentalities. And
Hmm.
I think it's
Completely.
yeah, because you got to be careful about the all of a sudden I'm shooting, but I'm either my mind is drifting, or there's no pressure, or there's nothing that I'm focusing on. And players, it's easy for them to just kind of let their mind go, and they need to stay present in those reps. One thing, like to make these changes in shots, I think going back to your courage piece, at the very beginning, like it takes a lot of courage, toughness, and trust to make a change in something so personal. How do you talk to a kid or a player and help them along in taking that chance?
There's two pieces. The first is, it's always a suggestion that I'm going to make and a decision you're going to make, and really trying to make sure they understand they're owning this process. And then the shooting feel is something that I think if the change or the adjustment or whatever we're doing with your shot, I asked them to evaluate the feel. And most of the time, if there's an adjustment needed, there's a feel that's going to be better.
Hmm.
And I think when you can make a kid feel an adjustment that makes it feel like it's smoother, it's got more range, whatever it is, then all of a sudden that's something that, hey, I'm in for that right there, because I want my shot to feel better,
Yep.
and then the idea of some just simple things where I think a kid can feel like they're on an island sometimes as a shooter, and how I'm making and I'm missing and I don't know why. And um, and this idea of giving them some things that they can almost regain control of what they're doing. And I think when they do that, then that's the mind's gonna to come into play. And simple things in terminology of locking your elbow, flopping your wrist, your shots going up and at. If you're shooting long and flat, like, let's think about shooting it up. Just some basic things that we all would be teaching. But all of a sudden, you can see kids gaining control of their thoughts, gaining control of what they're doing, and then to me, if it feels better for them, they're probably going to be
Yeah.
looking at saying, "This is something I want to look at."
I like your idea of focusing on a few key pieces, because I
Hmm.
think I know I've been guilty before of, all right, so a player asked me, hey coach, we look at my form, and I go over, and 10 tips later,
Right.
he's just frustrated and flustered. Well, go ahead and bend your wrist. We'll make sure there's a space. We'll make sure your elbow's straight up and down. And you want to have a little bit of a bend. And then it's like holding you throw so many things. And so I think the brilliance of you and how you coach with these guys and girls is the simplicity and the catchy terms that you use.
Absolutely. I think it's the idea of just trying to you're trying to get a result, you're trying to get growth, and there's a reality to that with each student, that you have to kind of meet them there, and then work through that. And the timing piece is one I think that really has helped kids, and it's really neat. I've got this kind of picture presentation of everybody from Mark Price to Michael Jordan to Steph Curry. And the one thing that's common, no matter how they get to here, there's a timing piece of where the ball is when they're lifting and what their legs are doing.
Hmm.
That is the exact same across the board, and it was really interesting to see. And I think once a kid can start understanding timing and feeling timing, a lot of times, there's of course the guide hand, and there's all kinds of things that are going to, impact your shot negatively if you're not careful. But great timing creates flow, creates a one motion feeling to your shot, and then I think now we're off and running, and
Hmm.
now it's a lot easier to, we can deal with some of the basic, the little things, as we need to. But the timing piece is huge for me, and I think a lot of shooters that struggle have terrible timing.
Hmm. One drill, I'm putting you on the spot. One drill that you would use to focus on that piece, because saying it's one thing, they have terrible timing, but then that's the whole idea with our conversation. It's not what you do, but how you do what you do that's important or special. One thing.
You could do this out of a few different game situations because you're going to have a little bit of a different timing off the dribble,
Mhm.
as you would off the catch. But the getting the idea of, I mean, you can even do it stationary, but getting them in front of the basket and making them feel this timing piece with, as the ball is going, call it the explosion point, but as the ball's going from up into your shooting motion, where your legs are there, and getting them to just dial in on the simplicity of set and go. And once they can feel that, then I
Mm.
think it starts to translate. So it's pretty neat because it's ultra simple. It's ultra, but they've got to feel it. And then the neat thing you'll see is once you start in that basic perfect shot drill, the moment they feel it once, then they start to feel when it's not there, and then we celebrate that.
Mm.
You can't fix things, you can't make it better until you feel what's wrong. And now we've got this comparison of feeling. And I think shooting is feeling, because once you can get some of this stuff going, then all of a sudden everybody's handwriting is a little differently, done a little different. But um, now we can start to unlock that mind. We got a little key, turn your mind off. With my daughter, a lot of times it's just telling her shoot with more joy.
Uh,
Let's let it fly.
it's the
Um,
most fun thing that you can do in the game is
absolutely.
let, and that's I think when we talk with players about when things get tough and you don't maybe don't like basketball that day, or you maybe even think of quitting and doing something else. Remember why you started, and everybody's playing journey with basketball is pretty much the same. When they were really little, it was fun taking this ball and trying to throw it in that hoop. It was fun. And man, somewhere along the way, pressure of winning, pressure of playing time, pressure of a scholarship or outside pressures, whatever it was, if we're not careful, can suck the joy away and out of the
No,
game.
no doubt. And the beauty of shooting too, to me, is when you get back to, like you say, just to that idea of when there's nothing like the feeling of the ball going to the basket. Like, you make a shot. It's just, there's something to it.
Still,
It's
there's
what
nothing
people,
like
yeah.
it. It doesn't
Well,
happen as much. It takes me a lot
no,
of reps.
true. You got to get in the gym, work on your game, coach, a little bit. Um, but there is, we're chasing that joy that we find there. And I think, that's something that, as you can find more of that in the game, is more fun than it's ever been.
Hmm.
The freedom of the way the game's played. But there's also this piece of, you know, when you and I were playing, there were a couple scholarships at colleges for guys that could shoot. And now, if you can't shoot, you better be special in another
Mm.
area. So you always tell the youth, there's a responsibility that comes to prepare yourself to be able to play the game that's more fun than it's ever been. But if you can't make shots, I mean, you're just not going to be guarded anymore, and that's going to make it tough for you to play. And so,
Yeah,
Johnny, you're open for a reason, son.
that's right.
That idea.
Yeah, Bobby Knight, number one skill a player needs to have is the ability to shoot.
Yeah,
Is it,
exactly.
it'll make everything work easier and better. What's the one thing that you could do differently if you could start over in coaching?
The first thing that jumped out in my mind was to be, um, embrace what I preached. embrace what I preached. I don't know that anybody preached and really the program lived it. The program lived the process. The program lived the joy, the program, but me allowing myself, as to still what Coach Beard talks about, smell the roses. I did not smell the roses near enough as a player. I didn't smell the roses near enough as a coach. Didn't celebrate things enough. Didn't live in the moment enough. And all I can think about, and it goes back to something that was, it was a tragedy in our lives. Had a dear friend pass away in a car accident, young father, young kids that were, in school with my kids. And at his funeral, the preacher said, we as men, we have to take our faith seriously. We have to take our family seriously, but we need to stop taking ourselves so seriously. Hmm. And that really has resonated with me, and that we've got to smell the roses more. I should have enjoyed all those wins, like we had our locker room celebrating those wins, and so I think you look back on anything you do, and I think like anything else, when you're in the race, it's one of the reasons we were successful is probably because we just moved to the next thing, or I moved to the next thing. But at the same time, I think there's this idea that we do truly have to take that journey and be more present, and enjoy those. And I think when you have the perspective to step out of it, it doesn't make anything that I was doing in the race any more or less significant. It was the big time. It was where I coached. It was the most important thing that I was doing professionally. But once you can gain a little perspective, I always tell players, you don't ever look back on your career and wish you played it more safe. You don't ever do that. And I think the same in coaching. You're not going to look back and wish you had made yourself more miserable.
Right.
We all should smile and enjoy that a little more. And I think I got better at that as we went. But that's something that if I was doing it tomorrow, I'd have the same challenge to try to allow that. But it just keeps coming back to don't take yourself so seriously.
Coaches, the one thing that every team needs is confident shooters. The last 8 years at Grapevine Faith, our teams have averaged 354 made threes each season. I love getting to share with coaches how our shooters train, and more importantly, how they think. If you would like to enhance your shooting culture at your school, contact me directly at jamodipodcast@gmail.com. Coach, we're going to go speed round. The goal of this is 30 seconds or so. We're going to try to get through as many of these questions and just what comes to your mind immediately. Don't think about it too long. You ready?
Gotcha.
I've got my timer on the inside here, and we're going to fire through these. All right.
Great players have a clock in their head, Coach. Remember that.
Always. Okay. And the speed round begins now. Texting or talking?
Depends on who it is.
Favorite city in the U.S. besides the one you live in?
Houston.
Favorite holiday?
Christmas.
Invisibility or super strength?
Super strength.
If you could travel back in time, what period would you go to?
The 80s.
What place would...
Gotta watch the Bulls again, Coach.
That's fair. What place do you want to travel the most?
Oh, Disney World.
Favorite junk food?
Pizza.
Favorite ice cream flavor?
Baskin Robbins Rainbow Sherbet.
Godfather or Star Wars?
Oh, Godfather.
Favorite car?
All I can think is the minivan, Coach. That's a terrible answer.
Last one. How many cups of coffee do you drink per day?
Oh, man, this spring, Coach, just turned into about 3 or 4. I used to be 1, so yeah.
It's
kind of coffee throughout the day.
How do you drink your coffee?
Black, Coach.
That's
like
right.
A head coach. Coach like a head coach.
Coach Wes Watson at McKinney High School said, "Man, if you want to be a head coach, you drink your coffee black." And I think he was joking, but since that day, I've always drank it black. And man, it happened.
There it is.
That's awesome. I did want to take a second and give you an opportunity to talk a little bit more in depth about MG basketball and kind of what you've created. I think it's been since 2007 that it's been around. And so tell us a little bit about MG basketball, what it's about, and and how people can find more information on it if they want to.
Absolutely. Well, MG basketball started with truly just the idea of we were going to do summer camps while I was coaching in college, and trying to create a camp that was, unique and different, and based on all the right things in regards to making it a wonderful experience and a growth experience for kids. And so we've always lived under the idea of tough, smart, skilled. That's been the from the start. That's the principles that we try to live by. And over the years, it's we've been really blessed to, I think, have people want to be a part of it. The coaches that are a part of it. You know, there's the stories like you and I, getting to know each other, and then kind of going on this journey together, and teaching the game and trying to impact young players. And it's like anything else. I think we're going to attract what we attract, and who we've attracted has just been this wonderful group of, I think, of men and women that are great teachers of the game, that have the heart for kids. And then as a result, we've been able to grow the summer camps into something where I think it's a wonderful experience. I'm thrilled my kids are old enough, my own daughters, to get to go to camp. And then the business has been able to build where we do a lot of team training, some skill development training in the off season, and really more than anything else, I'm gonna steal a few minutes if you don't mind. That the next step for what we're trying to do is this something that's been on my heart since I left college coaching, and felt led to create a ministry called Hoops for Him. And while MG basketball is going to continue to be hopefully a wonderful experience for anybody that does skill development or camp or anything like that, Hoops for Him is going to try to take what we've done with basketball, um, take current college athletes. And I think we talked about this. I've shared this with you. My trajectory in life was impacted by a guy out at Biola University named Dave Holmquist. And when Coach Holmquist came into my life my senior year, he was able to kind of bump me into a new direction in the way that it's the reason I have the family I have, and the wife that I have, and want to be the father I am, the Christian man I am. And so uh, my goal, my calling, is to try to find people that want to impact that next college athlete that's trying to figure out who they're going to be. 18 to 22 to 24 years old. That's we're all changing at that age. So hopes for him is going to be a summer camp experience that then turns into a 51-week journey outside of that camp, that we're thrilled to walk alongside these guys, find local partners. And so if you want to get me excited about something, it's this idea of being able to do something that with the game of basketball that we love so much, and make it completely kingdom driven, and then try to go help people. And hopefully that the Lord can use us in a way to where we got guys that are sitting here saying, that experience, those people, the Lord used them in my life, and now I have these things going on, and I want to come pay that forward for the next guy. And I think that's, of course, what we're called to do, but thrilled about the potential of that journey. So we're trying to kind of evolve MG basketball to something that's even more impactful,
Yep.
for Christ.
The plan of that, I'm excited to be involved with it myself, and I do think it's going to be something where we can impact a lot of people that'll be able to impact others, and that's going to be really fun to see it grow. MG basketball, where mgbasketball.com is where they can find any information about camps this summer, training teams, and everything else you got going on.
Absolutely. mgbasketball.com. If you don't find what you're looking for in regards to just kind of where you feel like you could, you fit into, the offerings we have, there's a place you can just contact us, and that's going to come straight to me. And I want to figure out if what we have is a great fit for, your players, things like that. And at the end of the day, just trying to make sure that if you do something with if any of our programs, you're going to feel like it was not only a really good experience, but it was a worthy investment into your journey, to become a better player.
Well, Coach, I just thank you so much for your friendship, for one, but also for coming on and sharing being really authentic and honest and some great nuggets today with these coaches. And just to really appreciate your time.
Hey, thanks so much.
Thank you for checking out today's episode. Please take a moment to subscribe to this podcast, share it with your fellow coaches, and find us on social media for what's coming up next on the Jamodi podcast. It's just a matter of doing it.